I'm Jason Herbert, and this is A Reckoning. Guys, I've been weighing how much to share with you what's on my heart today for the last few days. And the reason why I'm talking to you today is that recently someone I was close with in the Seminole tribe of Florida passed. She was an elder, and she was the kindest, most wonderful person. And I'm not going to share her name because I just don't want to do that. But I want to talk a little bit about her and what she meant to me, and maybe my process of working with tribes a little bit in my career and what's at stake here. I've I should probably preface all of this stuff by saying that none of what I'm about to tell you is endorsed by my current employer or anything like that or any other employer. It's just me. It's me rambling here. But I want to talk to you a little bit. I think some of you know this. I came to my current academic station because I was writing a dissertation on Indigenous Florida at the University of Minnesota. And while I was doing so, I was teaching high school. And then I was offered the chance of a lifetime to really get a chance to work for the Seminole tribe of Florida. Now, if you're not familiar with Indigenous history or tribes, first of all, thanks for coming to listen, because I'm going to hopefully share with you a little bit. Seminole tribe of Florida is one of two tribes who are resident tribes in Florida, the other being the Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida as well. And then there's the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. And you can learn a little bit more about them if you kind of Google and so forth. If you reach out to me, I'll see if I can point you in some directions here. But I was hired to do a study of the Everglades at the time, and part of that job required talking to elders, talking to tribal members, getting to know people on like a very personal level, a lot like what I'm doing now in my current position. And when I was writing my dissertation, when I was in school at the University of Minnesota, I was always really cognizant of not talking. I don't think a lot of people knew at the time who I was working for, serving. I always use the term serving the tribe. I always thought my job was a service instead of like an employment sounds transactional. And I always felt that I had a real deep commitment to the tribe for allowing me for giving me the trust to do the work, for trusting me to do the work for them that they needed. I really took that as a great honor. And tribal members back home in Florida who I hope know that how much I love that tribe, how much I love the relationships I've had, even though I'm no longer in service of that tribe. Golly, I just love everybody back there so, so very much. So, and it was a real honor for me to spend that time working for the tribe. And I've been working for the tribe for a couple of years or so, and eventually COVID, quote unquote, abated. We all kind of started to come through it. When we were first doing these interviews and things like that, I was trying to create this oral history program, or the one that already existed, but try to add to it and get to know folks. And of course, you're trying to do it on Zoom or digitally, and you're doing the best you can. But I really got a chance to know this woman a little bit, and I didn't know her super well. But, after about 2.5 years of being there, I was invited out to come meet with her. And my friend Lois and I were there with her and her daughter. And we were just kind of sitting on the carport, because COVID was kind of over, but not quite, And this was on the Brighton Reservation, which is this amazing place. If you haven't had a chance to go visit the Brighton Seminole Indian Reservation, it's right next to Lake Okeechobee. It's kind of on the northwest side of it. There are several other reservations. I've always been close with folks on Brighton because it's kind of like a cow community, a lot of cowboys and cow women, cattle operators and things like that. And, I think a lot of times people come to me and they're like, how do you work with tribes? How do you work with people and things like that? Because I think that maybe sometimes there's there's this idea that like the tribe working with tribes is like the moon or anything like that, and it's just not. Um, I'm not native. You guys know this. I'm just a guy from Kentucky, and I grew up in Louisiana and Florida and all these other places and such. Um, but my favorite thing is how welcome I've always felt on a reservation. It's the weirdest thing, people, you would think, if you get in your own head, people go, oh, you got all this years of colonialism. I know what I look like. You guys know what I look like too. I'm a big white guy with a beard and receding hairline and all these things. And man, I got to tell you guys, like I've never felt so much love as I do when I am visiting with tribal members. Like I've never been part of a community that's so welcoming and so open to other people, which is crazy when you consider the intertwined history of, say, the United States and so many other tribes and such, right? I remember one day, and this is, I was out here in Colorado and I was really expressing to an elder friend of mine, his name is Muzz, and he's Southern Ute, and I was telling him how hard it was for me to be out here some days because I miss my kids so much, and I'm trying to find my place here in Colorado and all these things. And he just looks at me and he says, don't you ever forget you have a home right here with the Southern Ute. And man, it just meant the world to me, that love that these folks have shown me out here. And it continues to mean a lot to me. The folks in Kiowa tribe and Comanche Nation and all these other folks who've been so kind to welcome me in and things like that. But before I got to know any of them, my first experience was working with Seminole Tribe. And, I didn't want to broadcast it because I was like, I was an academic and I didn't want to be seen as like using the tribes, using my position with the tribe as some kind of way to like raise my own stature inside of academia. Like, look at me, I'm the tribal guy. Like, I don't want to be that guy, right? I always thought that would be taking from or using tribe. And I just, boy, I've seen so much of that and heard so many stories of people using indigenous communities for their own good merit and good and stuff like that. And that's the last thing I ever wanted to be. For me, I just love those folks so much. And I'm so defensive to this day. And even now, I don't know how much I can share this with you. So I'm trying to be very careful with my words here. But this person, this elder who just passed recently, we were out there on her carport that day, and we were just talking about, just like you would be talking with your grandmother or your friend's grandparents or whatever, right? When I was growing up, my friend Mike, his grandparents, I just took as my own, right? So I used like his familial names, Daggy and Grandmama, for his grandfather and his grandmother, right? When you're close with your friends, you adopt their family members, and and there are all kinds of stories and stuff like that. But when I would go out to the res, I was taught very quickly, like, hey, use these terms. There's this guy out there, and he said, introduce myself to him. And his name's Norman Johns. He's amazing, and he's an older guy, and he says, call me Dad. And I was like, okay, all right, Dad. Because everybody calls him Dad. He's amazing. I love him to death. I used to love driving around with him on Tuesdays, looking at everything. But so we were out there that day talking about just nothing and everything all at once. We're just spending time just talking about stuff because there's so much you can get from spending time with your elders, man. And they don't have to be your elders. They could be anybody's elders, right? You just go and listen to them and learn from them. And, so we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there with my friend Lois, who I just love to death, and her daughter, and the elder and her daughter and all this. And, she looks at me and says, has anyone named you yet? And I'm like, no, and I know what she means, right? She's about to give me a Seminole name. Now, for those of you who don't know, like, getting a name, at least in this culture, is it's a pretty cool thing. It doesn't mean that you're Seminole or anything like that. It doesn't mean you're native. Doesn't give you any special privileges. But it's kind of like saying this guy's our guy. He's our guy, and we love him. And it's kind of like an honorific thing for someone to say, "Hey, this is your Seminole name." And I've been lucky enough to receive names in a couple other tribes, Ute and Comanche and stuff like that. And always used to be shy about even sharing that because I didn't want to be like, oh, look at me, I'm super guy or whatever, right? But I want to share this with you because I want to tell you the story of this person who I love and this tribe that I continue to love. And boy, I'm gonna start crying here in a second. I just miss these guys so much. So we're talking. I tell her about my dissertation. Of course, everybody knows I'm from Kentucky and all this stuff. And so I'll tell you the story. So she says, has anyone named you yet? I was like, no, ma'am. No. I look at my friend Lois, and she gets this big grin on her face, and she's telling the story, and I'm like, she kind of nods at me, and we both know what that means. And I'm about to get my name, and she says, "Well, you're from Kentucky. Are you a hillbilly?" I said, and I lied. I said no. And she says, "Well, you're writing this book on cows. Are you a cowboy?" I said, "No, ma'am, not really." And she's kind of playing around with some words and so forth. She goes, "I got it." She goes, "Ishtijadiabaga." And I look at her and I'm like, "What? What did you just say?" She says, "Ishtijadiabaga." What this means in the language is man. She tells me, she's like, it means man who associates with the Indians. And to this day, it's still the single most proud day I've ever had when I was serving the tribe, and maybe even still in my career. And I've had some really amazing days. The first day I'd ever danced at Bear Dance, going fishing with Muzz, my first trip to visit Comanche and Kiowa and Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Pawnee. I've had this incredibly charmed life when it comes to my working with tribe. I'm crying. Shit, I'm crying. Okay, whatever. And I remember practicing saying this over and over and over again on my drive home from the reservation back to Stuart, Florida, which is like an hour and a half, And I remember how good I felt that I received this. And then I was like, I don't know what to do. Am I allowed to say this? Am I, whatever, I was like, eventually I was like, I asked Lois, I was like, am I allowed to tell people I have this name? And she's like, it's your name. You can do what you want with it, and stuff. To me, it was really touching because in this moment of getting to know this person, this was her saying, "You're welcome here," and I worked so hard when I was serving that tribe. I loved them so much. I still do. I'm here in Colorado now, and it was this thing of like this acceptance, like you're welcome here. This is a space for you. And I've thought about that day probably every single day since then, and how much that meant to me. And I moved out here to Colorado about 2 years ago, and one of the things that was really important to me was whenever I talked to my friends in the tribe back home to like everybody know that, hey, I love you guys so much still. I try to talk about Seminole history when I'm out here in Colorado and stuff, just like I try to tell Ute and Comanche and Cheyenne, Arapaho stories when I'm in Florida and such. I'm always trying to tell these stories of people. So she passed though on Sunday. I got a message from Lois that morning. It was the first thing I saw. I got a text and tell me that what had happened. And I'm just heartbroken by it. I just feel it in my soul. And I didn't know what to do. My first thing I want to do is be able to go home. I want to get on a plane and just go back to the res, see everybody, hug them, tell them I miss them. But with the state of things as they are, you guys know what's going on in the world around us. I'm trying not to get fired in this podcast. It's just too tenuous. I couldn't do it. So what do I do? How do I say goodbye to this person who was so kind to me, who offered me this thing, And what I decided was I would go on the mountain. And I live in Pueblo, Colorado, and one of the beautiful things about out here is there's this big mountain called Pikes Peak, and it's sacred to a whole bunch of tribes. Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho, Kiowa, Hickory Apache, a whole bunch of other folks. And I thought, well, I can do that. And I have some tobacco that my friend Mary gave to me from Kentucky. And I kind of use this to, whenever I offer it to elders and such. The tobacco is historically important. It's culturally important. And I always like the idea of giving something from my home to these folks here who invited me into their home. So I went up on top of the mountain. At least I tried to. I got almost top. Pikes Peak it's 14,000 feet tall, 14,115 feet tall. And it's one of the few mountains you can actually drive all the way to the summit. And it got close. It was actually closed off, but because of my job, I was able to get up top. But the wind was blowing like 80 miles an hour, maybe even more. And I kind of turned around. I was like, well, okay, I guess that's not in the cards today. So I drove back down. But there was this spot. I was like, I know of this spot that I like. I was like, I'll go to this spot. No, I'll offer some tobacco. And, I want to preface all of this by saying that I'm really cautious about this kind of stuff because I don't want to seem like I'm appropriating culture or anything like that. But I've been told that it's okay by elders to do this. So, and I'm sharing this with you because it's the thing that I do with a lot of thought. And I think you guys know. I grew up in Kentucky. I grew up like Southern Baptist. I am not religious whatsoever. I kind of left that behind years ago. But I went up there and I found this tree. It was everything that has snow on the mountain still, but there was this one tree where there was like a little spot where there wasn't any snow. I was like, okay, this is the perfect spot. And I'm sitting there. My friend Kickway, who I just adore, I love her to death. She went to school in Minnesota. She's kind of taught me a lot. She's been just this amazing guide for me to understand. And I'm not perfect. But I get up there and I'm kind of like, okay. And the wind is still blowing hard, right? And so I get up there and I'm like, I've got my tobacco. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pray here. And I just kind of start talking to Creator, right? Who I've been told, like, in my conversation. And this is a hard thing for me to get around, but my people have told me, it's like, hey, Creator made you too. You are here because Creator put you here, Jason, to take care of these lands, to work with tribes. There's a reason why you're here. And as scared as I am, as much as I miss my boys, that's the faith that I put into my work, is the idea that I'm here because there's some other power here that wants me to be here. And even if I don't have faith in my own self, maybe I can put my faith in other people's faith in me. So it's blowing real hard, and the crazy thing happened. I start saying a prayer, and I was like, "Hey, Creator, this person passed. I was just trying to keep her in my thoughts and all that, and thank you." But the crazy thing was, like, the wind's blowing. I start talking, and the wind dies down. It just stops, and I'm out there. I'm like, well, since I'm here, could you also look over, Seminole Tribe of Florida and Miccosukee and Ute and Cheyenne, Arapaho, Hickory, Comanche, Pawnee, Osage, all these tribes I get to work with. I was like, could you look after those folks too? Because I love them so very, very much. I said this. I remember. I was like, I love these tribes and I love these people, and I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen, but you do your thing. And I sorry, I got the snot coming out of my nose, and I just I offered this, and I got done talking, rambling, in probably 4 or 5 minutes. It wasn't real long. And then when I stopped talking, the wind picked right up again. I was like, okay, that's weird, but maybe there's something to it. I don't know. It was my way of saying goodbye to this person and remembering her. And I've wrestled with talking to you guys about what it is that I do and why it matters. And maybe it's always in my own head because I'm always so afraid of being seen as like promoting this stuff or having this access. I never want to be abusive of that. But, we live in a time right now, guys, where the things that we do to these lands matter. The people here, people who've always been here, people who remain here, come from these lands. And you talk to, I remember when people ask me like, how long have Seminoles been in Florida? And the answer is always, right? That's the answer elders would give to me, always, right? How long have Utes been in Colorado? Always, right? Same for other folks. The things that we do matter, and they matter to these communities, and they are traditionally marginalized or at risk. You probably don't know the stories. I'll share more of them as we go along here on this thing. I want you guys to know that, like, the things that we do matter, and we have got to do our part to uphold the promises our ancestors made to their ancestors and that we continue to have to them. We can't just set these things aside. We have obligations, and obligations aren't negative, right? They are things that we uphold. I think they are things that make us us. They're sacred truths that say, we said we would do this, and we will do these things. I don't know. I wanted to share this with you today because I didn't know what else to do. I just love Seminole Tribe of Florida so much. And I love the people there, and I love the lands there, much like I love the tribes out here in Colorado and some of the other places I've had a chance to know. Eastern Band of Cherokees, there's some amazing friends of mine out there too. Love your elders, guys. And if you don't have any grandparents, go find somebody else's grandparents. I promise you, they'll love you right back. Yeah, I guess that's it. So, in the language on that reservation, I would just say Mado, right? Thank you for being here. Guys, I love you guys so very much. Tough time right now. Let's hold it together. I'm rambling now. So, to the elder who was out there, thank you so much for making me feel welcome to your home there in the reservation in Florida. Folks out here, thank you so very much too. I love you guys just as much. I have some podcasts coming about you guys too, if it's okay. I want to do my best. My job is to be out here and protect, defend, do the best I can. And it's my honor. It's been my honor to get to know folks. So that's it for now. I hope that wherever you are, you're having a good day. You can learn more about the Seminole Tribe of Florida by going to their website. You can Google that. You can find out their own history from them. They've got some amazing museums in Big Cypress. And also Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida has some amazing stuff too. They're right down the road. Or if you're living in Nebraska or California or someplace like that, there's some amazing tribes where you are from that you can just Google and learn about it. And by all means, go visit the reservation, go eat at the restaurants, go see the museums, go pay your respects, go learn something. That's what I got for you today. So I love you guys, Mado, and talk to you later. Ciao for now.